Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the main section of the video. So I hope you enjoyed that little cinematic segment. It was a hell of a lot of fun to put together, and now I'm basically just going to give you a little bit of a more personal walkthrough with the zone. So let's start it off with this Wicker guy. One thing that you see is like one of the core enemies going on in this zone are these Wicker enemies, and one of the cooler things about how this zone operates is how you pretty much see the Wicker stuff infesting other elements like trees and locations and people and all of that stuff, which is pretty cool to see. But of course we still have our regular humans, and we've got some Kultiran architecture over here, but I'm going to go somewhere else to show you that. And you can just see some of Tiergarde's sound way off there in the distance. But as I go to where I'm going to run to show you what the Kultiran architecture is like, I just want to point out one of the things that's really impressed me the most with this zone, and actually with a lot of Kultiras in general. There is a very, very impressive sense of scale going on, and we're really going to see that as I move forward here. So this is with the view distance and all that stuff cranked up to 10. So one of the cool things is that you essentially get scale from so many different methods here. So if I look in the background, I can see that one group of mountains. I can see way off across the central body of water in Kultiras, and of course then I can see the other two large mountains. What this means is that you're running around this zone and there are humongous mountains everywhere, and one of the nice things about that is that it actually gives you very easy to sort of navigate geometry, in that you always have key landmarks around the place to orient yourself with. That actually means that it's really quite nice to navigate. And this is something that I found to be far nicer than, say, some zones like High Mountain, which would get a little bit annoying in points. For the most part, while there is definitely verticality here, it doesn't completely override the zone. And that's definitely something that's quite nice. It does not feel like a navigational challenge. So you really do feel like you're immersed in this zone, running around the place, and it feels like a natural place rather than somewhere that was super, super tightly designed to be a miniature theme park area. Okay, so time to take a look at some of the Kultiran architecture. It's kind of cool. They've really taken the whole maritime boat thing extremely, really extremely on board. You see anchors everywhere throughout the architecture, but what is cool is that with some buildings in particular, and hopefully one of the ones here is one of those buildings, yeah, you can see there very much are literal boat shapes everywhere in the buildings. That's something you will have seen in the sort of the glam footage that I took of this zone as well. So it's definitely something that's quite nice, sets them apart, feels a little bit more unique. I was a tiny bit worried that if some of the colors from a distance felt a little bit close to Kazan, but that definitely is not the case when you're actually running around the place. Now, another thing that I really want to show you with this zone is the variation. This is one of the things that impressed me the most when I was first going through it. So we've seen the coastal style. You've just seen a little bit of the forest style. Well, now we pretty much go up into an entirely different feel when we're up in these mountains. Some pretty cool lore happens here, but really talking about the lore is not the point of this video. And once again, my character just feels dwarfed by the scale of this zone, and you know, it's an impressive bit of work, I suppose, because the zone doesn't feel overly stretched out or, you know, full of large, pointless areas, and it all feels quite tightly designed, and yeah, they've still managed to get that sense of scale, which is pretty sweet. But let's keep on going across this mountain so I can show you some other pretty cool stuff. Well, I suppose first things first, we really should just appreciate the view. That mountain really does go up quite far. It might even be higher than, well, High Mountain over in Legion. Let's head over to the other half of this zone. Yeah, this zone is... Look, I don't know what it's like in terms of square footage, but I'll tell you what, it feels pretty bloody big when I've been running around it, and if you want to see some more information about the relative size of zones, you can check out my video that was covering that topic quite recently. So, yeah, over here on the other side of the island, we have a pretty different vibe. There's more open spaces, and when you're running around here, you know, it feels really different from that sort of tight forested region, which is great. More variation within the zone, which is also something that helps to reinforce that sense of scale, because you're kind of getting slightly different flavors of the same thing pretty much no matter where you go. And for me, an area like this really does, it sort of does say that less is more sometimes. Now, I really do like, you know, a big mountainous, or sorry, like a big foresty, you know, dense, lush area, but sometimes a little bit of open space is something that's quite nice, and that is a criticism that I think many players, myself included, have had of World of Warcraft recently, where a lot of the zones feel so very, very dense. And we are later going to go on to Nazmir, which, of course, is a pretty dense swamp, so... but of course, I actually think it's a really cool zone. But I just more bring this up to say that it's quite nice to have variation going on. And yeah, in terms of sightlines and all that stuff, and reinforcing scale, again, nice big open spaces are very good. And the bit that I suppose matters even more is that in my experience, areas like here to quest in, they don't feel like a slog where you're just spending ages running around the place. So we're right now taking in a very, very efficient and safe way down into this Crimson Forest, which very much is a tight enclosed space, but it's very cool. And, it's another sort of different flavor of Drustvar that you get while you're here. In some ways, it feels like a few different zones crammed into one. I mean, if you compare this to, say, Sholazar Basin, right, I mean, I love Sholazar Basin, but it kind of is one big lush jungle, and then the ugly bit where the Scourge went in, whereas here it does, almost feels like multiple zones have been blended together. So this area is extremely cool. First of all, the sky really does turn ridiculously red. I actually think it might be an okay idea if Blizzard was to tone that down a little bit. It can actually be kind of jarring when the skybox sort of morphs to a ridiculous degree, but that does not take away from the fact that this is a very, very atmospheric place, if I was to say anything. Going around, it's tight, enclosed, and it's backed up with some very good ambient effects, some very atmospheric music as well that is not too bombastic to pull you out of the moment. As we go further in, though, stuff gets a little bit more dense and crazy. We also see the trees have got slightly different shapes, and all of that, just all of the evil stuff that's sort of bubbling up onto the surface of this zone starts to become more and more apparent throughout this area. Certainly these guys have not been having fun. One other cool thing about the Kultiran architecture, yeah, we've got fish in the doors. Because why the hell not? And you've probably seen these guys from the trailers, but there are the big wicker golems, which, I don't want to fight right now. Also, cool little detail if you look at these skulls in the middle of it. Pretty damn cool looking. Anyway, let's go deeper into the forest. And I mean, this already makes for quite a picture, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a very threatening place, and one that is very, very well executed in terms of the color palette, which I quite enjoy. Certainly the questing here has been, pretty cool. Of course, I am getting slightly nibbled on by things, but, we'll sort of make it out of there. One nice thing is there's actually this sort of low-lying fog that I've noticed Blizzard have been using a bit, so it's another little tool in their toolbox to make cool areas. And this really is pretty much what's going on with the Crimson Forest. I mean, it's a Crimson Forest, there's a hag, not really going to get tangled up with her. Let's leave and go to the final place that I'm going to show you. Actually, I lied, it's not the final place that I'm going to show you, but this little, Pirate Cove style area is really cool. And, they're also not my friends, so I'm going to keep on running. Yeah, this may not have been a great idea. You can also see some thin humans, which is one of the new models that we've got. Now, before I get dismounted, I'm going to run away here, but yeah, you even got a little pirate cove. Oh, great. Well, I'm back, but I do have res sickness, so my chances of being chomped have just went up. Also, well, let's just say Noble would be quite pleased about these guys, I imagine. Let's keep on going to the other side of, or the other end of this side of Drustvar, though, because, as you can see in the horizon, something very much is going on. So we're in an area here where essentially all of those hags and their weird magic and these sort of creepy scarecrows, there's actually a big version of that scarecrow. Oh dear. Well, what I was saying before I rudely got killed was that, this is sort of where you see the hex stuff sort of take over the locals and gets into some pretty cool little bits of storyline that, again, we're not going to spoil here. Now, you can really see more built-up Kultiran areas here, however, so especially in terms of the boats, that's sort of a big boat. And if I move, hopefully if I can get near enough to this town, you can see, there's little crow's nests in terms of the lookout towers and stuff. Overall, it's a very, very cool aesthetic that, manages to, after 14 or however many years, still feel quite different. And, as this thing suggests, we're not going inside there. And that pretty much is it for a tour of Drustvar, showing off this, one of our 6 new zones. It definitely ranks very highly for me overall as a World of Warcraft zone, which I think is pretty apparent throughout this video. It's an aesthetic that I really like anyway, but it just happens to be done really well. There's a lot of sort of diversity and all of that with its different locations. It's got a mix of tight areas, it's got a mix of wide open areas, it's very easy to navigate, and I mean that in the sense of it's not frustrating, not the sense of it's boring. Yeah, it's a really, really cool zone. So, there you go, that is Drustvar, one of our new zones in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth, and it looks like I'm going to close this one off by hopefully not getting chomped by wolves so I can go to this sort of area, which is a nice sort of little picturesque place, which, you know what, I think this makes a great place for a grave, so why the hell not? Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, I certainly did. It's a lot of fun seeing what the art team comes up with for us, and this video was brought to you by you. So, this has helped immensely by the wonderful people over on Patreon. By supporting us, they've let us tackle a lot more than what we were able to do now that there's a full-time editor working on with the channel. If you're interested in all that stuff, check out the Patreon. There you'll get early access to non-news content, regular blog posts, vlogs, the AMA, and just a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff. It's a great way to be a bit more close to the community, chat with the other guys, and also just help us out with how everything's ran. So, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.